So what I try to do when I am writing out my own articles for my info pages is to do it just like I've been doing for the other pages here, except I have a slightly different approach to it because in a lot of cases, I want more content to be on my info page compared with other pages of my site. So to start with, before I actually begin my writing, I'll open up my notepad and start out by giving a title to my page, which contains my primary keyword in it. Beyond that, though, I want to kind of have a mental picture of what I'm going to write about throughout my content. So I will try to brainstorm 3 to 5 subtopics for my main topic, whatever this article is about, whatever the primary keyword phrase is. I want 3 to 5 subtopics for that main topic. And that's what I will write my content about. So I'll start out with a title just like this. And then I'll write what my main topics are. What is defrag? My other ones, I think I did, HDD and SDD or SSD. Defrag hard disk drive and defrag solid state drive. So here's 3 topics, subtopics, having to do with my main topic. And then what I can do is write out information having to do with each of these different subtopics. So I first start and give a summary and an introduction of my entire page topic. So that would be my initial content right up here at the top of my page before I get into one of these subtopics here. Then for each of my subtopics, I expand on those with a number of paragraphs of text, however much I may need to truly be able to talk about that subject. It's quite okay. For this one, I used 3 paragraphs. For this one, I was using 5. For the one down here at the bottom, I have numerous paragraphs of text, a couple at the top, a couple down at the bottom, and I even have a numbered list that is going to be in the middle of it all. These are my large descriptions for each of my subtopics here. So I have my header, and then I have my big description to go along with it. Now, ultimately, you should have 3 goals when it comes to these info pages. Number 1 is to teach your website readers about the subject. So you want useful content. Number 2 is to get traffic. Using the higher traffic, lower competition phrases that are often more informational based, you can bring in the traffic off of the search engines to these pages of your site. And then number 3, you want people to proceed from these landing pages of your site to the money pages of your site, the places where you can actually earn something. So these would be the product pages. With that said, since a higher competition niche where you have to target the info phrases, since you're going to be getting the traffic onto those info pages, you need to move that traffic from your info pages to your product pages. And so that's what this last step is, funnel content towards a product page. This is actually pretty easy to do if you have picked out your topics correctly to the point where anything relating to your subject can be led to purchasing that product. So that's essentially what you want to try to go for with your info pages, is ultimately you need them to leave one of your info pages and to proceed on to one of your product pages to buy something. So for defrag solid state drive, all the way down at the bottom of my page, I say take a look at our recommended solid state drive brands here for help on picking one that is right for you. What I'll actually do is turn the phrase solid state drive brands into a clickable link, which will then point to the brands section of my site. Well, you can do this in a more general manner, like what you see here, where I would link up to my main category page for my products. But then you can also get more specific with it, where here's another article of mine for this site for the gaming, where down at the bottom I talk about, personally, I use the Samsung A50 Pro solid state drive. I can actually turn this right here, Samsung 850 Pro SSD, into a clickable link that then goes to the Samsung brand page of my website. So you're not only funneling traffic that's going to come into the info pages along to these product pages, but this also has search engine benefits too. You're re-emphasizing what those target pages are about with your anchor text that you use, and that can actually help to boost the search rankings on some of your higher competition pages. For this site, my brand names in the actual product phrases, a phrase like this is going to have crazy high competition. I may not ever be able to get a ranking for these phrases. However, there's certainly no harm in trying. I need the info pages there for the traffic. I need the product pages there to refer sales, and I need to pass people along from the info pages to the product pages. So I'm going to need those links anyways. Why not use relevant keyword phrases to help re-emphasize the point of my brand pages? That can, once again, help me to get rankings on that brand page for specific keywords like this one. When you're dealing with higher competition, it can be hit and miss. However, if you make a habit of doing this type of stuff, it has benefits all over the board for it. So it will help you out one way or another, whether it's funneling the traffic for you, helping to boost your search rankings, or even a combination of all of these. Now, when you are building your post onto your site, this will work pretty similar to how it has worked for the other pages I have shown you so far today. The main difference being that you're going to be creating posts here and no longer pages. The other main difference, though, is that you have categories that you actually need to select when you are dealing with a post. So this is how you sort your content to ensure it shows up on the correct part of your website. So I just click on the info box here, and it'll show up in the info section of my site. If I click on the brand box, it'll show up in the brand section of my site. You can have a post in multiple categories, and it will show up on both sections of your site. However, I would really recommend against doing that unless you have a very good reason for doing so, because that can essentially end up being duplicate content. The title, the picture, the excerpt of this page will be on both of the category pages that you end up selecting. So that's kind of why I would recommend just sticking with a single one. Now, just like you did with the other pages, you want to try to spice it up a little bit. Add things like your headers, make them bold. For this particular post, I have a list here. I'm going to make the intro word for each of these items bolded so they stand out a little bit more. But in terms of making them into an actual list, I will use WordPress's capabilities, where I select the entire list. I click on either UL or OL. This is unordered and this is ordered. So if you want it numbered, you use the O. If you don't want it numbered, you use the U. And then for each individual line of that list, you select it and click on the LI button. And that makes it a line in that list. So I can do something like this for my list to make it stand out from the rest of my content a little bit better. Now, beyond this initial tidying up of your content and the other default things that I've been talking to you about that you want to do on all of your pages, like setting up your SEO settings, the main thing that you really need to worry about with your post is actually setting a featured image for it. What I mean by featured image is you have your normal media that you can add to a post, where you go and you upload a file here. You can also access your media library as normal and insert images into your post. Well, down here in the bottom right-hand corner of a post, you have this set featured image link. This opens up the same kind of a screen where you could then upload an image or access one of your existing images. But instead of inserting the image into your post, you select one and you set it as the featured image. Now, this doesn't add any code to your actual page itself. But you can see right here, my featured image is showing up in this little preview. And this featured image will actually also get used in a couple of other places. I want to go ahead and publish this post so you can see what I'm talking about here. Number one, our featured image is automatically used by the Weaver theme, and it is shown in the top left corner of our post content. If I were to click on this, it would automatically take me to the full size of the image. Notice how the full size of the image on this example here, where it's a lot longer, wider than it is tall. Well, when you get the preview of it, the thumbnail, it will cut that off if the dimensions are not exactly square. So keep that in mind with whatever you decide to choose as your featured image. It'll not only show up on this page like that, but if you go to the primary category page, that featured image also shows up there. So this is the page I was on before where it said nothing was found at the bottom. I have not updated this page whatsoever since that time, but now it is actually showing more information down here for this post that I just created. So people can now go down here and click on the image, the continue reading link, or on the title itself and get to that actual post on my site. So as far as the thumbnail here and the dimensions of it getting changed on you and cut off, there's not really a lot you can do about it on the main category page. It's going to be shown as this small square thumbnail like this. However, on an individual page, if you wanted to change how that featured image was actually used, if you go down to the Weaver Extreme options, down at the bottom you have a section that says Single Page View Featured Image. You can change how this is going to get displayed. So you can have it shown in different sections, or you can even have it hidden entirely. So for my example, if I didn't want it to be showing a tiny little thumbnail up in the top left, I could hide it on my page like this, and then actually go up to the top and manually insert it into my page. But instead of using a square 150 by 150 thumbnail, I could use one that's going to be more relevant to the dimensions of that actual picture. So I could go full size maybe, or even the medium size. Making a change like this will simply allow you to show the entire picture instead of a cropped thumbnail of it. Now it looks like for this image, like it might work out a little bit better if I just show the full picture. I can even remove the link entirely that it's pointing to. So now at the top of this page, I just have a larger image, and it's not clickable at all. It doesn't go to anything. Obviously, this definitely ties into what the rest of my content is about too. So you can mess with these featured images a little bit using this setting here if you don't like the way it is getting displayed by default on this actual post. If you wanted to keep the default method though, but maybe you wanted to change the link, a really good example of this would be on your product pages. On your product pages, you will have a picture of your product that you set as the featured image. So then on your product category page, it can show a little preview of each of those products all listed together. Well, that thumbnail on the product page, you wouldn't want it really linking up to a full-size version of that image. You'd really want it pointing over to Amazon. So you can do stuff like put in an Amazon affiliate link in your featured image URL box right here. And that will actually change the featured image preview, the one that was showing up in the top left of this post here before I disabled it. You can change it to any kind of a URL that you want to. So while I recommend using the featured image for any post that you create on this type of a website, you may or may not want to use it the default way. It just kind of depends on what your pictures are and what the dimensions of your pictures may be. If they all work out fine, showing as a little square thumbnail, then, power to you. Leave the featured image preview there and save yourself a little bit of work. You don't have to go through and change this type of stuff, but this is something that may be needed for some and not for others. I would also want to still be paying attention to my SEO settings, my search engine listing and social networks listing tabs to provide the title and the description. But one of the more important things that I wanted to point out that is different with this type of a post creation than it is with the other pages I've been showing you so far tonight is the excerpt. If you look at my primary page, my category page here, where it is showing the title and the preview and the description to go along with it, This description right here is coming from my page content. That's actually the beginning of my page content right here. Well, there are a number of different ways that you can have that excerpt actually created. You can do just like it's doing here, where I have a blank excerpt and it will then automatically generate one based on the top text that is in my content. However, it won't always work out to your best advantage to do that. There are a lot of cases where simply providing a couple of extra sentences of content that essentially summarize your entire page can make it more appealing to click on when it's being viewed on your main category page like this. Here, somebody does get, the intro content for this page, but then it's basically just cut off on them. And sometimes it can make them want to continue on reading by simply getting a little preview of the post like this. Other times, though, I like to be able to summarize it myself and, talk them into clicking on it for a specific reason, some kind of content I might have contained on that page, kind of like what I would do with the meta description that I set up for any given page. So with that said, you can use the default auto-generated descriptions that are going to come off of the page content, or you can provide your own excerpt. It will give you a little more SEO value to provide a unique summary for the excerpt here than it will be to just have the auto-generated content. Because if you remember on this primary category page, this is really the only content we wrote for this page. So we're depending on a lot of this content to really take up the entire page, to give us all of our content for this page. So with that said, if you don't write out your own excerpt, this is just going to be a copy of content from somewhere else on your site. This is what's known as duplicate content here, when it comes from another page of your website. So it's not against SEO rules to have a setup like this where this content is found on this page word for word. But again, you will get more SEO benefit if you can make this unique to where this content is not found on the actual page that you click through. And that's done once again by providing an excerpt. Now, if you are on a post like this and you scroll down to the bottom and you do not see this excerpt box right here, you may need to go up to the top and look at the screen options. If you click on this, you have a number of different sections that you can have displayed on the post editor. And you can change what actually gets displayed by just clicking on the checkboxes. So look for excerpt and just click on the checkbox, and then you can go back down below and it'll automatically be showing up there for you. By default, though, I'm wanting to say that this is actually hidden by default, so I'm pretty sure you will need to change these screen options to get it to show. There's some other things here, though, that you may not have previously been aware of as being part of the editor or part of WordPress. Things like the full height editor. If there's certain things that you don't want there, you can remove those to give yourself a more clutter-free work environment. Now, if you are using the automatic previews or the automatic excerpt generation here, you also have to think about the limit, the word limit that this excerpt is going to generate. The theme is actually controlling that limit. if you go to Appearance and Theme Options, then go to Main Options, Post Specifics, and finally click on Excerpts and Full Post right here, you'll see a little section that has to do with the excerpts, where you can actually change what is really happening. You can change the Continue Reading link. You see Continue Reading text is showing up with each of my posts. It will continue to do so as I add more posts to this particular page here. If I didn't want it to say Continue Reading, if I wanted it to say read more about solid state drives, whatever the case may be, I can change that default text. The excerpt link, though, right here, changes how many words will actually be generated for this. Now, by default, this is going to be set to 40. And with the thumbnail size that you have here, 40 words, if you have it taking up the entire width of the page, so that would be the one column, 40 words really only takes up about 2 lines, maybe 2.5 lines worth of this. So that's about 40 words, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I usually double it to about 80. That pushes me a lot closer to taking up all of my available space here, just so I don't have a lot of white space next to these pictures for each of my post listings. So if you need to adjust that a little higher or lower to kind of fit the content that you're writing with the pictures that you're selecting, just simply know that it is there, and I generally do change that myself from 40. You can see right here, default 40 words, and I change that up to 80.